Ladies and gentlemen, my name is TotalBiscuit. I'm here to ask and answer one simple question. WTF is Ace Combat Assault Horizon? This is a curious one for me to be doing, I suppose, simply because the Ace Combat series has never really been on PC before. Not until now, at any rate. This game is probably about a year old now, give or take, but it came to PC a few weeks back. That was a fairly unusual decision by Namco Bandai, although they do appear to desire a little bit more of the PC space after relative success with Dark Souls, even though the port was diabolically bad. Turns out it got fixed by modders, and a lot of people bought it anyway because they had the desire to really get into Dark Souls. So they thought, hey, Assault Horizon. Well, it's unfortunate that they chose Assault Horizon. Of all of the Ace Combat games, this is by far the most divisive, and in my opinion, by far the worst. But it has some upsides, and I would of course like to explain to you exactly what's going on with this. Now, I might be a PC gamer at heart, but there are certain console series that I go out of my way to play, and Ace Combat is one of them. The games that I've played from the Ace Combat series are Ace Combat 4 and 5, as well as Ace Combat X, Skies of Deception, Ace Combat XX Joint Strike or Joint Assault, I can't remember the name, the stuff started to get really weird at one point, and then Ace Combat Zero, aka Ace Combat Belkin War, depending on where you happen to be in the world, they mucked around with the name. So those are the games that I've played, and I've played all of them to completion. Now, for me that's pretty rare. I generally don't beat games, but I go out of my way to beat these ones, and the reason is because I always really get into the storylines, I love the way the games are paced, and generally speaking I have a really fun adrenaline-fueled time. Out of all of the games that I regularly play, Ace Combat games are the most consistent for moments that have made me feel so thrilled with gaming that hairs stand up on the back of my neck that I'm so goddamn excited to be playing it. So, as you can imagine, I've got an interesting perspective here. Now, this is an interesting video to be doing because I now get to talk from the perspective of someone that's played a lot of the previous games and has certain expectations, right? This is the kind of thing that I imagine some of the Devil May Cry guys were feeling with the new DMC video, and also the guys that really loved Dead Space 1 and 2 but didn't like the third one. This is from their perspective, but at the end of the day, I can only give you my perspective, right? It's very hard for me to put myself in someone else's shoes because I don't have that kind of experience. If you come to this channel, that's all you're gonna get. You're gonna get my opinion. So, this is called the Enhanced Edition. Let's see just how true that actually is. So, if we were to go to the options menu, we can look at graphics settings. There's really not a huge amount you can actually do with it. Now, they did advertise that it's improved graphics, resolution up to 1900 by 1200. So I'm in 1080p right here at 120 Hz. This does allow the game to run at upwards of 60 to 120 frames per second. This is kind of a big deal because Ace Combat games were usually played at that speed, depending on what platform and game you were playing, but recently they've been 30 FPS because consoles suck, right, and they don't have the power. Now, Ace Combat is traditionally a pretty damn good-looking game, so consoles have struggled with it. I believe Assault Horizon was 30 FPS, and I know Ace Combat 6 was as well. So this is an improvement, definitely. Aside from that, there are no real graphics options to speak of, which is definitely disappointing. What may also disappoint you is the fact that the controls are not set up for joysticks. And indeed, they're not even set up for keyboard and mouse. You can play keyboard or with a controller. This game is designed to be played with a 360 or DualShock pad. Since it's games for Windows Live, yet another black mark against the title. It does use games for Windows Live. It works best with a 360 controller or compatible, something like a Razer Onza or a Sabertooth or the default 360 pad. Now, I've argued for a while that the 360 pad should be a default kit for pretty much any PC gamer because there are certain games that simply work better with it, but some people disagree with me on that. The lack of proper mouse control as well as the lack of joystick support, however, is a pretty severe black mark against this game, especially considering that Ace Combat 6 on 360 had a special edition which actually sold you a flight stick. So it's not like this game hasn't used flight sticks before. It was very disappointing to me to not be able to break out my Cytec X52 and have a good time with it, so I'm pretty much stuck with this. I believe you can rebind as far as I am aware. Yeah, I think, as you can see, you can edit the keys. So if you do really want to use the keyboard, you can. I would strongly urge against it. You're not going to get that fine control. It's going to be annoying as hell to play. Alright, so what else has the game actually got? Well, you've got free mission. You also have Games for Windows Live online play, which supports up to 16 players with certain modes. A couple of extra maps available in the enhanced version. There are also 8 new aircraft and 27 skins. Some of these skins are really not very good. Let me go to this, for instance, and I can show you exactly what I mean here. So, these are some of the missions I've played through up to this point, and I can show you exactly what I'm talking about when it comes to the actual style of play that this game encourages. Now, let's just jump into this. There's a bunch of skills available here. You can enhance stuff. This is all designed for free play and not for the campaigns. Now, if we can go and have a look at some of these fairly ridiculous aircraft. And, well, if you want plane porn, you're gonna get it, because every Ace Combat game has been absolutely stacked with really awesome-looking aircraft. This is no exception, of course. The Saab Gripen, one of my personal favorite aircraft. I used to be very much into military aircraft when I was a kid. I actually covered my wall with these cards. They were kind of stats cards for aircraft. They were sort of square, and I literally spent all day making a wallpaper out of these things. And the Saab Gripen is one of my personal favorites. Harrier, classic aircraft. These are all fully licensed, which is pretty nice for a lot of people. Now, when I was talking about skins, well, let's just say that some of them are not exactly what I would have hoped for. I'm going to try and find you an example of this. So, these are, yeah, that. This is what I'm talking about. What a hideous looking thing. So for some reason, a lot of these skins are from the Idolmaster games, which I believe are Japanese. I don't even know what they're all about, but they've got super kawaii anime characters on, and they essentially make your gorgeous aircraft absolutely hideous in every respect. So I can't really see a lot of people digging. I mean, look at that bloody thing. God, that should be illegal. God, that's horrible. Lord. Ah, YF-23. Gorgeous, gorgeous plane. As you can see. Wish you'd kind of pan around it. I would really like that rather than the really slow computer-controlled stuff there. But yeah, including those skins really wasn't much of a plus. Alright, let's go into it. So, Ace Combat games have always been about dogfighting as well as air-to-ground. So you've had your air-to-air missions, your air-to-ground, and your multi-role. And it's been about blowing stuff up. Dogfighting, for the most part. This game deviates from that by adding helicopters and turret segments. There are, to my knowledge, 2 turret segments in the game, as well as a gunship section where you are entirely on rails. It's like playing Zombie Gunship on the iPhone, only less fun, and it drags out forever. It's absolutely horrendous. The helicopter segments, I believe there's 2 or maybe 3 in total based on what I've looked at in the FAQs. These are not very good either. The handling on the helicopters is just absolutely dreadful, and honestly, I have no idea why these are in the game. This is an example. This is where I currently am in the campaign. It is a turret segment, as you can see. Oh, look. I have a minigun. I can't do anything else other than zoom in and shoot. This is not what I want out of an Ace Combat game. This is not what I want out of any game. I mean, it's horrendous. It's absolutely horrendous. It is a complete waste of time. Now, some people might say, oh, it's to break up the monotony of the actual aircraft segments. It's like, if you do it right, you don't have any monotony. And quite frankly, I have played a lot of Ace Combat games, and I know for a fact that there isn't all that much monotony in it at all, because they usually pace the missions really well, and they vary things up. They give you different aircraft, they give you different scenarios, and the storyline and just the general pacing of the game really helps to make an absolutely wonderful campaign experience. And I've never really found missions in Ace Combat games, at least up until Assault Horizon, that have actually dragged out to the point where I've not wanted to play anymore. And yet the first 4 or 5 missions of Ace Combat and Assault Horizon are exactly that, and this one's gonna be that too. It's like, oh great, I get to shoot stuff in a turret segment. I don't get to move my aircraft in any way, shape, or form. This is brain-dead nonsense. This should not even be in the game, and yet it is. And this is not the only time. Like, the credits segment, the opening credits, for this game are an unskippable turret section. I kid you not. And they are boring as sin. Astonishingly so. They're also incredibly easy for the most part. Looks like we are being shot at by boats. Well, there you go. So, for a lot of this, I don't even get to do anything, because I'm waiting for the bloody helicopter to get where I need to go. I can't evade missiles. I'm not the one piloting the sodding helicopter. And it doesn't seem like there's anything I can actually shoot at here, by the looks of it. We're just getting a lot of missile alerts. Maybe I can shoot missiles down? Yeah, I can. Okay. To be honest, I have not seen many circumstances where you will get hit by enough missiles to die in these turret segments. I think I was hit by like 10, like 20 missiles in the opening credits and I didn't die, so I don't even know if you're invincible there. This is crap. Right? This is just awful. Now, Namco Bandai have said that this game was very much an experiment, yeah? They deviated from the formula to see if it would get more acceptance. They even put, like, real-world names. They got a New York Times best-selling writer to write a so-called authentic and realistic military plot. Realistic! I mean, which is, if anyone that knows anything about Ace Combat knows that the very notion of having a realistic plot in these games is absolutely ridiculous. I mean, these are games where giant airships dominate the skies. These are games where your aircraft can hold upwards of 200 missiles. There are secret weapons that fire 6 missiles at once. There are planes that don't even exist in the real world. It's just bonkers to even suggest that it's a good idea, and yet they did it anyway. They introduced real characters with real names, and they even gave them FaceTime. That's never what happened in Ace Combat. Ace Combat was all about the war. And to be honest, every time you flew in that game, the game kind of presented you as something of a legend. I mean, you became a myth. That's the way that it told the story. It told it very much by telling you the perspective of everyone around you. And people would have their accounts of this amazing pilot that saved the day and basically single-handedly won the war, and it was pretty epic. Ace Combat's been really good at writing epic, if somewhat ridiculous plots. I mean, I remember at the end of one of the Ace Combat games, I can't remember which, I was basically fighting a spaceship. I might as well have been. There was this aircraft that was so advanced it was essentially a spaceship, and the only way I could really do any actual damage to it was to shoot an exhaust port. It was like the Death Star. In fact, there are many parts of Ace Combat games that are essentially like Death Star trench running. And they're pretty awesome. Huge airships, big boss ships, with cloaking devices, and 16 engines, and multiple EMP and plasma turrets. This stuff exists in Ace Combat. So why on earth, in a million years, would you try for a realistic plot? And then throw in nonsense like still having 200 missiles and going up against bombs, which are just absolutely absurd. These essentially like advanced nuclear-style weapons and things like that. I mean, in this case, we're going up against one of essentially Call of Duty-style monster boxes. Yeah, you have clown cars. Where did these guys even come from? There are loads of examples. In fact, one of the worst examples of enemies just appearing out of nowhere is on the AC-130 gunship mission, which is all on rails, of course. Stuff literally appears out of nowhere, because you can see it. You've got this heat sensor, so you can see things just pop up out of bloody nowhere. And it's ridiculous. Like, where did those 6 tanks come from? Where did all those infantry come from? And it's dreadful. It's absolutely awful. And this is still going on, by the way. Like, why is this taking so long? And you might think, oh, you're just bitching. It's like, no, this is dreadful. This is really, really bad game design. The pacing is all off. This stuff shouldn't even be here. And this isn't a case of, oh, well, you know, it's your expectations for Ace Combat games. Yeah, I have a certain amount of expectations, because I've played like 5 or 6 Ace Combat games, and they've all pretty much played in the same kind of way, and they've innovated in small ways, and they've changed things around in small ways that just don't upset the people that actually like the series, yeah? They go into the series expecting cool, high-speed, adrenaline dogfighting, and that's exactly what they get, with an unrealistic and ridiculous but epic storyline. And this game doesn't provide that, because it constantly interrupts it with crap like this. I mean, I'm not even doing anything here. I'm just waiting for these guys to go in. And this is not the only example of that. In fact, pretty much any of the ground attack missions involving helicopters or turrets or anything like that always pad the mission out by making you wait for AI troops to go into certain places. And then it'll trigger something else, and then it keeps going on and going on and going on. And it drags out. I mean, we're talking about missions that are dragging out to somewhat 20, sometimes 30 minutes, which is absolutely unnecessary because it really outstays its welcome. Now, Ace Combat games in general are known to be... I'm sorry, what? Did I just get one shot? Are you kidding me? Did you not notice how many hits this thing took earlier, and apparently I just managed to get one shot for some reason. Good lord, I don't even know how that happened. Bear in mind, these things have regenerating health as well, so... Okay. Let's try and deal with that hind. Where is he? Alright. I can't actually... Oh, there we go. I can actually hit him from there, so... Yeah, taking on a hind in a Black Hawk. That sounds reasonable. Alright. Let's just keep shooting him, and eventually he will die. Not that the Apache's doing anything to help me out. Good lord. So, the fact that this stuff exists in the game is the problem. Now, let me be honest here. The majority of the content in the game, at least the number of missions, is actually in planes. Yeah? Mostly fighter stuff. There are some missions where you fly bombers like the B-1 and B-2, which is... That's actually kind of nice, because generally you don't get that. In previous Ace Combat games, there's been very much ground attack-orientated aircraft, like... was it the Fishbed, I think, is very much a ground-orientated aircraft, as well as the A-10 Warthog. So you were very much able to fly those, and you do your ground attack missions in that basis. But here you do actually get to fly genuine bombers, which is pretty cool. Yeah, if... That's the kind of innovation that I sort of wanted. That's a bit more variety. What I didn't ask for was helicopters. Now, there are a couple of missions where you get to fly an Apache and it flies like a helicopter would expect, and you get full control over it, but it's just not very interesting. The helicopters don't control in an interesting manner. They have this really gimmicky mechanic about missile evasion, which allows them to do a backflip, which is just absurd. And it's way, way less interesting than flying a plane, because you just don't have the speed, you don't have that adrenaline, and you get really bad pacing as well. The missions can drag on in a really major way. Are we still doing this? Good lord, we're still doing this. You see what I'm talking about here? You see how ridiculously long these missions actually are? I'm gonna bail out of this, and I'm gonna show you an actual dogfighting mission. Because this mission just represents the game in a really bad way. And I'm not going to say, oh, well, just ignore that this is here. You shouldn't ignore that this is here. This is a cripplingly stupid design decision that pisses me off in a really big way. And it ruins the pacing of the game, and it's not skillful in any way, and it shouldn't be here. It serves no practical purpose whatsoever. Why would it be here? So let's bail out of this, and let's go try another mission on the free mission mode, and I'm going to show you some actual flying. That's the AC-130 mission I was talking about here. That's a helicopter mission. That's your tutorial mission. So, upward, you know, at this point of these 6 missions, 2 of them are not in planes, and 1 of them is very much a tutorial. And then the one after power play is the one that I was just playing, which is a turret section. So we're gonna, I think we could do blue on blue. Let's do blue on blue, because that's just a nice straight-up dogfighting. Okay. I'm just going to keep this on. I mean, honestly, you know, I'm not going to mess around with the skill sets. That will do just fine for me. What we're going to fly. Have a lot of choices here. I might fly the Grip N, actually. I mean, it's okay for dogfighting. The good thing is it's not too fast, which means that its handling's pretty good. So I might fly the Grip N. Yeah, why not? Very nice. So what am I going to put on it? Well, as you can see, rocket launcher, pretty terrible idea. I'm going to be fighting air-to-air, so... I like the quick target ones. Like, some people really swear by these 4 missiles at once, but I love quick target air-to-air missiles. They're absolutely wonderful. Highly accurate, very good for taking down pesky targets. So, let's rock and roll with that. Now, do I want to maul it? Do I have the ability to... No, I don't have the ability to change the Grippen's color, so I can't make it pink and covered in super kawaii bollocks, which is probably for the best. Alright, let's fly this. Let's show you some actual Ace Combat. So, you know, there's this little scripted section here, and then nonsense ends up happening. Look at that thing, it's beautiful, absolutely beautiful aircraft. As you can see, it's a decent looking game. I mean, it's, you know, it is enhanced, I suppose, in the sense that the resolution and the frame rate is higher. It's definitely not the best looking game I've ever seen, but it's not bad. The ground textures are pretty weak, actually. In my opinion, they're actually worse than previous Ace Combat games. But, you know, the planes still look pretty fantastic. I have a feeling that they made it look a little bit more gritty deliberately, just to add this sort of realism factor, but which I very much hate. But there's some really nice effects, like the way that the afterburners work, for instance. I'm a dumbass. Yeah, you can do that and not die, by the way, which is very unusual for Ace Combat games. And you do have regenerating health as well, which is I'll talk about that in a minute. Yeah. There's a lot to say when it comes to the way that the dogfighting actually works here, and a lot of different features that I don't necessarily feel are a particularly good idea. Alright, time to rock and roll. Moving to actually engage these aircraft. Let's have a little bit of fun, shall we? Okay, so most of the actual fighting you'll be doing in this game is missile-based. And that will allow you to just kind of, you know, shoot at the target, and if you get the right kind of angle and you get good momentum on your missiles, then everything's good. Of course, if you don't, then the chances are the missiles aren't going to hit. You would have thought that would have hit, but it didn't. Now, what you also have the ability to do is that if you get close enough, you can enter the dogfighting mode. Now, this is new to Ace Combat Assault Horizon, and it allows you... Alright, this is going to get messy. It allows you to get in really close, and the computer takes partial control of your plane, although not all of it. And what it allows you to do is to absolutely gun aircraft down with the chain gun on your actual aircraft or close-range missiles. This is actually almost required for some of the leaders. You know, there are some more advanced aircraft that are classified as leaders. They're very, very hard to just hit with missiles. And you, more often than not, just have to get into this dogfighting mode here and just blow them up that way. There are ways and means around that. The advanced weapons, like, say, these quick lock ones, generally work against the leader aircraft. So you don't have to go into too much of that dogfighting mode if you don't like it. But the game definitely encourages you to do so. It's like, hey, look at this brand new feature, we're kind of going to force you to do it. Now, this is something that a lot of Ace Combat veterans probably won't be happy with. I personally don't have an issue with it. I think it's actually kind of a lot of fun, and it adds some pretty fantastic moments, especially when you're on some missions where they will send you through a city. Like, and you know, there are certain kind of scripted sections where you'll be flying through a city, and it gets absolutely fantastic. And I really love that. You know, I have a lot of good things to say about the way that it can present some really fantastic scenes. Something truly adrenaline-fueled. Great pacing, absolutely awesome playing combat. But there are times when I kind of hate it, because it's like, oh, well, it's just because the game forces me to use this, and there's no other real way to kill these aircraft. And these guys are pretty easy to take out. Missiles generally do it if you get a good lock on it. There you go, you can have 2 more. That should do you in. Excellent. I've got someone behind me. It also allows you to do this weird flip maneuver if someone gets on your tail, which is kind of nice, honestly. Alright, someone's about to lock onto me there. Alright, there we go. You're gonna go down, son. Excellent. I've got someone pretty close to me. I want to try and even this up so it will actually let me shoot at him. But never mind, I'll just turn it around and take him out that way. MiG-21s aren't really a big threat. I think whether or not the dogfighting mode is for you is going to be of personal preference. I don't think it harms the game. In fact, you know, there are times when I think it's actually fantastic. And it really does add some wonderful cinematic depth to the game. And it's nice to have something a little bit different than just, oh, lock missiles, fire, or use guns. Which can always be a little bit awkward with the analog stick, because it's difficult to be precise. Oh man, here we go. This is where things start to get really interesting. The Russians are attacking, because hey, why not? Come on, are you actually going to let me shoot them yet? Yep, it's like... Yeah, I know they're hostile, that's why I want to lock on them. Let me lock on them, goddammit. Turn them into hostiles, fantastic. Here you go, have some of that. Let's get into... I think I'm going to have to start using my quick locks here. Because these guys are a little bit trickier. These are not MiG-21s. These are MiG-29s. Who are way better. There we go. Here you go, you can have some guns. But, you know, you see what I'm talking about when it comes to those kind of cinematic moments? Yeah, there's a lot of fun to kind of be had there. It's not an automatic kill by any stretch of the imagination. You have to kind of keep your pace with them. You've got to make sure that they don't flip behind you, which they can do if you let them. And then they can just fill you full of missiles, which is pretty intense. So I think that it does add a certain degree of depth to the dogfighting, and I don't hate it. I don't hate it at all, actually. I think it's pretty fantastic. Let's get a flip on him. No, didn't quite get it. But what else? Well, some of the biggest problems that I've got with the dogfighting in this game are mostly due to the mission pacing. This one's okay, but previous dogfighting missions have dragged on for way too long. And they completely outstay their welcome, which I absolutely hate. it got to the point where I was getting bored of Ace Combat dogfighting. I mean, you kidding me? Me getting bored of Ace Combat dogfighting? You realize how hard you'd have to screw up to make that happen? Yeah, you have to screw up pretty damn hard to make that happen. And they did. They screwed up. Like, the first mission, and I think the second one as well, it is nothing but wave after wave after wave of freaking fighters that provide no challenge whatsoever. You just gun them down over and over again, and it just isn't fun. You know, it isn't. Thankfully, this mission's a hell of a lot better than that. You know, you're going up against more advanced opponents. They're a little bit more difficult to take down, and the pacing is just right. They don't put too many aircraft against you, and they don't repeatedly spawn wave after wave after wave of sodding aircraft directly at you. But half the game, actually more than half the game, has this pacing problem. And it's huge because it bores you greatly. Previous Ace Combat games have never outstayed their welcome. They've always paced the mission out really well. So it's like, alright, I've had enough of this. It's okay, the game, you know, it just ended at the right time, or they threw something different at you rather than just another wave of freaking aircraft. And then, as a result, you had a lot of fun there, and the storyline was paced in the right way. They didn't overdo the cutscenes, which they really have in this case. I mean, we have characters here that get FaceTime and stupid conversations going on. These are sort of really ugly cutscenes, which are rendered in the engine, which are just not very good at all. And as a result, I end up hating it. And I shouldn't be doing that. It's Ace Combat. I shouldn't be doing that. I should be having awesome dogfights and being a freaking badass. You know, this is all danger zone kind of stuff. Over and over. But yeah, I'm not getting that as a result. Now, if this is going to be your first Ace Combat game, then you may be able to get over some of it. You probably won't be able to get over the pacing. Yeah? I think a lot of these sort of complaints that I'm having, such as the introduction of the door gunner and the helicopters and things like that, these are not the kind... And regenerating health as well, by the way. I just want to comment that regenerating health really, really does a number on the tension that this game otherwise would have. I remember instances in Ace Combat 5 and Ace Combat 0 where, you know, I would be low on health, I'd be low on special ammo, and I had to play like an absolute boss to beat it. Because I couldn't regenerate my health. Once I'd taken damage, that was it. You were boned. Yeah, you had to just be a really awesome Top Gun ace pilot in order to actually beat that. Which was, you know, that was just phenomenal fun. It really, really was. But here, you could even hit the ground, and you will end up in a situation where it's okay. It doesn't really matter. You can take it. You can just bounce off the ground. It's unbelievable. I mean, obviously, you do it a few times, you'll die, but even then, that shouldn't even be happening. Under no circumstances should they be allowing that to happen. And yet they do anyway. So it's like, they made the game stupider in many different ways. Now, for a new player, that might be okay. I don't think it's a good introduction to the series, because by all accounts, they will be, when they actually do Ace Combat 7, they will be going back to the older school style of play. And that is a good thing. Trust me, that is a good thing. There are definitely elements of this game that I very much like. There are times when, you know, the true Ace Combat game comes through and I say, yeah! And there's these amazing moments. And honestly, I feel that the dogfight mode actually allows for some of those moments, which is something that I disagree with some of the Ace Combat veterans that just hate all of the new stuff in this game. You're always going to get situations where it's like, oh, you changed a bunch of stuff, so I just automatically hate it. I don't think it's worth automatically hating the dogfight mode, because I don't think it really outstays its welcome. For most of these aircraft, you can just shoot down the traditional sort of style, but every now and again, you get a really cool chase where you get to do some awesome stuff like this. And, you know, it kind of rocks, you know. It's a lot of fun. I like it a lot. Yeah, sit down. But the helicopters I don't like. I can't get used to the whole Apache section. In fact, I'm going to bail out of this one, and I'm going to show you how they work. Because they're not that fun. Okay, here we go. So, as far as I can tell, I think you only get one choice. Oh no, you get two. You can fly either that one, the Russian one, or the Apache Longbow. And that's pretty much it. Both of them are pretty hideous. Wow, that's actually exceptionally hideous. That's pretty cool, though. Yeah, I might fly that. Interesting. Should we fly that instead of the Apache? Yeah. Yeah, let's do that. Because that looks quite fantastic. I can also get some bombs on this thing. I'm going to get the air-to-air. The reason I'm going to get the air-to-air is because I know there's hinds to shoot down in this mission. It's really annoying. It's actually horrible. This is the, what's the name of this? The Black Shark or something like that? Oh god, it's going to make me do the flight control test again. Great. Alright, well this is a good opportunity for me to show you the flight controls of this thing. So, for one thing, you never want to be behind it because it takes up like half the screen. So, you can change your view. In cockpit's okay, or you can just go like that. This is just better for that. Now, the controls are super basic. There's really no nuance to them whatsoever. You go left, you go right with the left stick. You can go up and down with A and B. And that's kind of about it. You can turn a little bit faster by using the right stick. And that's all there is to it. Yeah, that really is all there is to it. You can also do this weird flip that is used for evading missiles. I think it's going to show you that momentarily. We'll get a chance to do that. Now, as regards to what you have on your weapons, well, in this case, I've got these ones which are designed for shooting down aircraft, and then I have the rocket pods. The rocket pods are fairly fun to use just because they happen to look really good and they sound really good. As usual, Ace Combat nails it in terms of the actual aesthetic. Like, it's a good looking game and it's a good sounding game. Even though it's not, like, graphical fidelity-wise, it's not amazing, it still feels good. And it still looks good and it sounds like it should. Alright. Let's rock and roll, shall we? Let's just get out of this view, because it's just hideous. There we go. Alright, there's not a lot of cockpit detail, really, on the helicopters. It's almost like it was kind of an afterthought. The planes look a bit better in that respect, if that's the kind of thing that you like. Personally, I just like to roll it like this. Alright, so we are going to go shoot something. Now, here's this counter maneuver that I was talking about here. When you get a missile shot at you, you can do this weird-ass flip, which is just like, it is actually Airwolf. I'm almost convinced. Look at it. You can't do that. You kidding me? It's basically Airwolf. And, you know, I suppose it's kind of fun in that regard. Now, as regards to shooting, well, you've got your rocket pods and you've got your machine guns and then you've got your special weapons. I'm going to just go up there. And it's really not all that fun. It takes a while for the rocket pods to recharge, and while it's okay to shoot at stuff like that, it's not exactly what I'd call a particularly enjoyable experience. If you want a game that does helicopters well, then this is not the game for you at all. And unfortunately, it seems like the helicopters really were an afterthought here. And now, this ends up in a really... Wow. I am not even paying any attention. So I probably shouldn't suck as much. Let's try again, shall we? I'm just an idiot. I couldn't care less for the helicopter section, so... You end up in this really weird situation, right? Where you don't want to spend too much time investing in a new system that's going to annoy Ace Combat veterans. Like, why didn't you focus on making more plane-based missions? The problem is if you don't spend enough time making the actual thing not suck, then it ends up in this situation. You know what the way around it is? Don't put it in a bloody game to begin with. Yeah? Seriously, just don't put this sort of stuff in the game at all. It has no place in an Ace Combat game. The bomber section's okay, fine. That's actually cool. Yeah? You let us fly some pretty awesome bomber aircraft. That is nice. I am happy that that is in the game. It's a bit of different pace. It's different to just a straight-up ground attack mission. It's actual solid bombing. That's cool. And those planes can still fly fairly quickly, even though they're pretty heavyweight bombers, right? Which is alright. But this... And this is just strafing backwards and forwards, waiting for my rockets to recharge, and occasionally shooting with my bloody guns. And that's it. And then pressing the two buttons together every time you get a rocket shot at you. You know, which is your way of instantly avoiding every rocket ever shot at you ever. Which is, you know, it's dumb. It's not actually fun. It's not enjoyable. So, you know, this is helicopters in a nutshell. And these missions are really bad because they're very, very poorly paced. This one takes about half an hour. It's constantly just blow up stuff on the ground, blow up stuff on the ground, blow up stuff on the ground. Oh, here's a couple of Hinds. So if you happen to go into this game with the air-to-air missiles, then you can just destroy them easily. Otherwise, you have to hit them for about... It literally takes about 2 hours of shooting them with a machine gun to actually kill them. It's pretty dreadful. Not a fan of it at all. I don't want to switch between special weapons because there's nothing for me to actually shoot with them, which the game doesn't actually recognize because I decided to go with the service to air missiles, and even on the free mission, it still makes you do the tutorials. Why? Who the hell knows? I don't know. So, you know, this is dull. This is super dull. So, that's the problem with the game, really. The problem is that the actual fighter sections, for the most part, are pretty good. Some of them are just dreadfully paced, and I absolutely hate them as a result. Really, really disappointing. Let's fly that, because it's crazy. Look at this thing. Just absolutely nuts. So that's really, really disappointing. When it gets it right, when some of that classic kind of idea of Ace Combat shines through, then the game rocks, just like every other Ace Combat game. The problem is that it's got everything against it. Absolutely everything against it when it's trying to be a good Ace Combat game. It just ends up being absolutely atrocious in many, many ways. And that's horrible. I mean, that is really, really horrible. It shouldn't be happening. These are experiments that should not have been made, right? And you might say, oh, well, you know, stifling innovation. Innovation is not as important as you think it is, right? If it ain't broke, don't fix it. There are ways to innovate with the flight mechanics. Like this, for instance. This is an innovation with the flight mechanics, and I don't mind. It's all right. This is pretty cool. Very nice. You know, this is fine. I'm okay with the dogfight mode. You keep that. That's totally cool. You keep the new weapons and the different skill sets and abilities and the way that you do your multiplayer modes. Great. That's fine. But don't put helicopters in the game. And don't put turret segments in the game. And just don't be a dumbass with the game, right? You know, you basically put all of the things that an Ace Combat, I would say fan, just someone that likes the series, you put a bunch of stuff in the game that they would absolutely hate. And as a result, you end up in this horrible situation, where the game occasionally shows flashes of brilliance and then completely ruins it for itself over and over again. And like every time you see, oh, great, I get to fly a helicopter in this mission, you're like, why? You know, I just want to fly a plane. I just want to do this awesome stuff. You know, this is fun. You compare this to Hawks, I mean, missions like this kick Hawks' ass. The pacing is just pretty awesome. You know, this is one of the better missions that I've played so far. But then there's other missions where the pacing is dreadful. And it takes like half an hour to kill everything. And it's the same bloody thing over and over again. In this mission, you get bombers thrown at you. You know, which really changes things around. Because you're going up against some stuff that's much tougher and kind of requires you to target the engines and do great stuff like that. And it has that typical Ace Combat adrenaline moment of, oh god, will I save the city in time? And that's great, and that is wonderful, and that is one of the best examples of adrenaline-fueled sort of arcadey fighter action. But there's not enough of that. There really isn't. So, it's, you know, I have mixed feelings about this game. But I'm leaning towards the whole, this is probably the worst Ace Combat game ever released. That doesn't mean it's awful. I think that it's got some really good missions, and stuff like this is super fun. It's really fast. And the way that you fly your planes is extremely enjoyable. You've got a lot of maneuverability. It's arcadey, but it has that feeling of authenticity to it. And you still get to fly some super futuristic planes like this thing. I mean, look at this thing. It's crazy. Absolutely nuts. You get to fly through a city and do awesome chase sequences and just, you know, kick the tires, light the fires kind of nonsense. And it's cool. And then there's moments where I just hate it. And that's sad. That really is. So this game is currently available for $35. 35 euros. Oh, no, it's actually 30 euros. I lie. And then it's also £20. And, you know, if you've never played an Ace Combat game before and you're looking for an arcadey flight game on PC, you'll probably enjoy it. But you're going to also run into these missions where you just wish they would end. It's like, why is this still going on? The gunship mission and things like that. The majority of the missions in this game are dogfighting based, which is good, but even then, just because we have just so much nonsense in terms of pointless filler and pointless padding, and it ends up ruining the game. It really does, and I wish I could tell you that it didn't. I really do. I wish that there was more stuff like this, and less stuff like helicopters and door gunning and bollocks like that. But it's not true, I'm afraid. And there's no easy way to skip those missions, so hey. Grin and bear it, and maybe the game gets better later for you, but even then, it's hard to recommend, it really is, and that's kind of sad. Here's hoping they don't do this again. I hope that Ace Combat 7 comes to PC and is a traditional Ace Combat experience. You can keep this dogfighting thing, that's cool. I mean, come on, look at this crap. I'm flying through a city, and it's amazing. And stuff's gonna explode, and there's gonna be planes coming from all directions. I'm flying under a crane, and it's like, yeah! How cool is this? And the answer is super cool. Look at this. You know, this is an example of scripted events done right. And then you can do that. And like, yeah. You know, and you want to fist pump. And then there are times when you want to facepalm. So sad. My name is TotalBiscuit, taking a look at Ace Combat Assault Horizon Enhanced Edition, currently available on PC. Games for Windows Live, just want to remind you of that. And I'll see you next time.